What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Sex and Grits, where steez is my expertise and fashion is my passion. Since the release of the Jordan 1 in the spring of '85, basketball sneakers have been a staple of on-court and off-court style ever since. They've proven that no matter how many trends have come and gone, that it will always have a prominent place in streetwear. In this video, we're going to take a look at my top 10 basketball shoes of all time. Let's go. Even more, superstar Vince Carter, arguably the best dunker ever, who was widely popular and at his peak during the time, was promoting them, which made them that much more appealing. Prior to the Shocks, Nike had used and patented the enclosed air bubble with shock-like springs used in the Air Maxes and other popular sneakers. Now with the Shocks were now exposed, giving it a very futuristic look as Nike looked forward to the new millennium. Today, they are still highly regarded, and there have been many iterations of Shock sneakers since, and the original was even re-released back in 2019. Nike and Adidas has been dominant in the athletic sneaker world. Reebok at one point was close, but never quite caught up to their level of influence. That's not to say that Reebok didn't have its place in iconic sneaker history, and that brings us to our next shoe at number 9, the Reebok Kamikaze 2. This was the signature shoe of NBA legend Shawn Kemp, who in the 90s was one of the NBA's most premier and popular athletes. The Kamikaze 2 was released in '95, just 1 year after its predecessor, the original Kamikaze. The original Kamikaze had a distinct lightning strike-like design cascaded on the shoe, which was edgy, but it didn't really grab the attention of sneaker buyers like its successor. The Kamikaze 2 took the design of the original and made the lightning strike designs inverted, thicker, and more embossed, but all while being very simple. The Kamikaze 2 is what sneaker enthusiasts remember and even associate with Shawn Kemp and Reeboks. They were re-released in 2013, proving again that these shoes have stood the test of time. All right, coming in at number 8, we have the Adidas Form. The Form is another iconic shoe that I personally don't think it gets the respect that it deserves. Created in 1983 and released originally in 1984, this was a trademark shoe of the '84 Olympic basketball team and also prominently worn by Michael Jordan, of course, before he went to Nike. Designed by Jacques Chachi, who spent more than 3 decades with Adidas, it was one of the first shoes to use a Velcro strap feature, meant to keep the shoe more secure and stable, also used by similar contemporary Air Force One. One other interesting fact about these is that they had a $100 price tag in 1984, which was absolutely absurd back then. That's equivalent to nearly $300 today. It's been most recently retroed in 2020 and has even featured collab designs with Jeremy Scott and others. And coming in at number 7 is the Nike More Uptempo. Easily one of my favorite shoes ever. These dropped in 1996 and were worn most prominently by former Bulls star Scottie Pippen. Created by shoe designer Wilson Smith, these grabbed everyone's attention because draped on each side of the shoe was its graffiti-style bold and embossed Air logo that really defined the 90s perfectly. The shoe was also featured in the Disney film George of the Jungle, which furthered its popularity. These have gone through several re-releases and new colorways since 2016, proving again that the legacy and the impact that the shoe has had. All right, and appropriately at number 6, we have the Kobe Zoom 6. It's been well over 3 years, and it's still heartbreaking and unfathomable that Kobe Bryant is no longer with us. However, no one can deny how much impact he had on the world in his short life, and it's no different in the shoe game. The Zoom 6 was released in 2011 after Kobe had won his 5th championship. The sneaker further cemented the Black Mamba moniker with its snake-like design draped all over the shoe. It's been widely regarded as a player's shoe, as many NBA players still wear them today. It's known for its comfort and molding, making what I feel Kobe's best shoe ever. Like I mentioned before, in terms of longevity and market share, Reebok couldn't touch Nike or Adidas, but that doesn't omit them from creating some of the best sneakers of all time. And with that, we have the Reebok question coming at number 5, the signature shoe of one of my favorite basketball players ever, Allen Iverson. These were released in '96 during his rookie season, and Iverson and the shoe came at a much-needed time for Reebok as their 2 main endorsers, one being Shawn Kemp, who by the mid-90s was increasingly becoming involved with off-court personal issues, and Shaq, who although himself was very popular, wasn't selling shoes to their expectations and would eventually leave to start his own brand. The shoes were an instant classic, a high-top design, mostly white, with 2 large honeycomb-like air bubbles not really seen during that time, with a shelled toe. What I like about this and many shoes of Reebok is that they never overdid any of the signatures, but have managed to invent creative elements not yet seen. And at number 4, we have the Jordan 3. Released in January of 1988, these were the first Air Jordans designed by legendary Nike designer Tinker Hatfield, who would go on to make an extensive series of Jordan signature classics over the decades. The interesting note about this one shoe is that it's one of the first, if not the first, basketball shoe with no Nike logo on the sides. The 3s actually come with a relatively minimalist design, but where it catches your eye is with the elephant print design on the heels and toes of the shoe, which had never really been done before. In addition, it contained an air bubble, which was new to Nike basketball shoes at the time, and had the Nike Air brand on the back. These shoes were more of a mid-cut, which Michael Jordan probably preferred because he would often switch off wearing high and low-cut versions of the predecessor Jordan 2. Jordan also wore these for his 1987-88 campaign, in which was probably his best individual season ever, earning NBA MVP, NBA Defensive Player of the Year, NBA scoring title, NBA First Team, NBA All-Star MVP, and last but certainly not least, who could forget the image of him wearing these jumping from the free throw line to also win the slam dunk contest that year. And coming in at number 3, who could ever forget the groundbreaking Reebok Pump? These were first released in the fall of '89 to serve as a competitor and answer to the widely successful Air Jordan series. As I mentioned before, Reebok never had that market share of Nike, but no one could argue their impact and innovation of sneaker history. Just as the name denotes, Reebok designed this as a high-top shoe with a basketball pump-like button on the top of the tongue, which was designed to give you more air to fly to the rim. Did it really work? Some may say yes, others may say no, but no one could deny that these were some of the coolest shoes ever made that extended from basketball into hip-hop culture. Most younger basketball fans probably don't know or remember who Dee Brown was, but he wore and also pumped these to win the 1991 slam dunk contest over Shawn Kemp by covering his face and slamming the ball in. The coolest part of that is that he took a second to pump his shoes up before each dunk attempt, adding to the mystique of the pump. The pump feature itself has been used in other iterations of Reebok sneakers over the years, as well as the pump shoe itself being reissued numerous times to numerous colorways. Coming in number 2, we have the Converse Chuck Taylor. You really can make a sound argument that this is the best basketball shoe ever. The Converse Chuck Taylor is the godfather of basketball shoes. First created and dropped in 1917 by, you guessed it, Chuck Taylor, who was a former professional basketball player turned shoe salesman for Converse and was handpicked to redesign the shoe's original renderings for more function and support made for basketball. His own Chuck Taylor branding, as we know it to be today, was produced in 1932. The Converse Chuck Taylor was the shoe in most of the early middle part of the 20th century. Even in the 60s and 70s, the Chuck Taylor still controlled over 70% of the basketball shoe market share. Towards the late 70s and 80s, Converse and other sneaker companies started developing more sophisticated and technical sneakers, making the Chuck Taylor irrelevant as a basketball shoe, but it's never died down as a cultural phenomenon and has been worn in countless iterations over the years. And finally, at number 1, we have the Jordan 1. No surprise here, the Jordan 1, much like Jordan, changed the course of basketball as well as culturally forever. And really, it saved Nike, who likely, if it wasn't for Jordan, would be a relatively unknown brand, possibly even non-existent. Nike was known at the time that Jordan started in '84 as a track shoe, as Converse and Adidas were the dominant basketball shoe brands of the time. In terms of the design of the Jordan 1, they weren't really overly innovative or foreign to other basketball shoes of the time. In fact, the design was fairly simple, most would agree. But the bread colorway changed all of that. Debuting in '85, no other shoe was as daring with the color scheme at the time. Jordan himself didn't like them at first. In fact, he wanted to sign with Adidas before eventually signing with Nike, and was quoted as saying that these are devil shoes. What the Jordan and Jordan 1 did was set the standard for marketing, and from there, Nike became a force to be reckoned by, possessing sports' most popular and exciting athlete, and spared no expense to completely take over the sneaker market share like no one had ever imagined. Jordan 1 saw its first re-release in 1994, and since then has been popularized in street style and probably is even more relevant as a shoe as it was back in the '80s.